Ladies and gentlemen, this RedGamerTed.com video, we have some further information regarding the PlayStation 4's much touted share functionality. And indeed, it can actually be blocked by developers. This information comes to us from Sony's Worldwide Studios president, Shuhei Yoshida. And indeed, he was actually telling that in an interview how he was inspired by the idea behind this from actually Dark Souls. And anyway, and I'll read you a part of the interview. There were parts of the game that the maker does not want people to be able to see. For example, on Vita, developers can, in certain scenes, disable the feature that lets users take a screenshot, and the share button will have a similar mechanism. For example, the creator may not want to make videos of the final boss shareable. I'm actually fairly happy with this decision, because honestly speaking, and this is obviously out of quote of my own opinion, honestly speaking, I think that the ability to share everything as a blanket decision, in other words, it can just capture whatever it wants, would kind of destroy it. I suppose at the same time, simultaneously, and it's very difficult to put a lid on things, because there are so many Let's Plays going on, and guides, and whatever else, so it's very, very difficult. It's not like back in the days of, when the internet was first coming along. For example, me and my friend were very avid players of Tekken, very big fans of it, and we would be going to these different websites, and we'd be downloading these very small clips, which were like a 320 by 240 or 640 by 480, and we'd be downloading these things on like a 56k connection dial-up, in other words. And it was very difficult, very excruciating to do it. It certainly wasn't easy. I'm not saying that it was certainly, impossible, but it was certainly nowhere near the levels of, say, YouTube and various other social media sites have now created. But I think it does make sense that games developers do want certain areas of the games to be a surprise. And indeed, I'm not really sure, personally speaking, how I feel about the social media aspects of the PlayStation 4. I think that they could be very cool in one respect, but I also think that they could be maybe get old fast. Maybe that's just me being a bit of a stickler for that type of thing. But, I do quite like the functionality, and I think it could be kind of awesome. But at the same time, I'm not really sure that it's particularly an amazing piece of technology for all games. I think that certain games very much don't really lend themselves too well for it. On the other hand, some games definitely do. Fighting games, that type of thing, really do. On the other hand, I think that some games who have very, very climactic final bosses, that type of thing, maybe may not lend themselves quite so well. In the same interview, Yoshida also was talking about the difficulty that even the internal Sony studios have in creating games for the PlayStation 3. Now, you guys will be very familiar that I've done multiple videos and expressed multiple times on the difficulties of creating with the PlayStation 3. And you may even remember just a couple of days ago I released a video concerning Santa Monica Studios and how they were using the SPUs, the Synergistic Processing Units, on the PlayStation to get the most out of the games. And of course, that's one of the reasons how they made titles like, say, God of War Ascension look so darn pretty. Anyway, in the interview he's discussed, and this is a quote, "It's difficult to believe that games like The Last of Us and Beyond Two Souls are running on exactly the same hardware as these early games. Those developers have studied hard to make a great PS3 game, but it's taken a long time for developers to reach this point." I think this is not anything, but this is out of quote, of course. I don't think this is anything particularly new, but I think it's very interesting that Sony are so willing to admit now. I mean, obviously there were a few interviews here and there that said it was tricky, but they are certainly becoming very open with the fact and very acknowledging how difficult the system was to program for. I think it's one of those situations where they really want to illustrate that their design philosophies and their philosophies as a whole are changing in regards to the PlayStation 4. And I think in regards to the social media, or should I say sharing button, I think it's going to be one of those things where Sony want to illustrate that they're actually trying to give more power back to the game's developers, because ultimately they are the ones who are responsible for, well, producing the titles that actually sell the system. For example, let's talk about the major PS3 games, and let's not even talk for a second about third-party gamers, third-party games. I should talk about titles like Uncharted, Killzone, The Last of Us, of course, despite the fact it's not quite released yet, and those type of games. If you were to look at those games, you would be looking at reasons to buy or own a PlayStation 3. In other words, they are the system sellers. And to give the developers enough power and enough responsibility to themselves, in other words, to be able to just do whatever they want rather than being held in any artificial restraints, I think is very important. Anyway, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I realise I've been fairly quiet the last couple of days. All I can say is that I've been extremely busy getting RGT's website ready to move to a new, faster server. I've been messing around with various cloud networks and trying to get used to Linux distributions and figure out a few bits and pieces behind the scenes. Rest assured, I will be around over the next couple of days. However, I will be getting back into the saddle. So anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. It's been a fairly short one, but anyway, take care and bye for now.